Hello Internet, I am Coffee and Rain, you can call me Sophia. It is now May of 2023, which means we've all emerged from our winter hibernation and it is new project time. And this year I am doing this video series of little YouTube videos as a way of keeping myself accountable. Because we all know it's real easy to start a project and then just never finish. So this is going to be my way of keeping myself on track and trucking along, and I'm going to actually finish this project. I am full of confidence. It'll be great. And I figured, why not take people along with me? So I spent the early spring diving into vintage and antique crochet patterns, which is super nerdy, but also super interesting to see how pattern making has evolved, how crafting has evolved over time. If you want to look into some antique patterns or crafting books, I recommend going to Project Gutenberg, which has fantastic resources for a lot of things. But there's also the Antique Pattern Library, which I've used a bit. I've also, done the thing we all do and surfed around on YouTube and found one channel in particular called Just Vintage Crochet. She has a really fun series where she crochets mystery patterns, where she doesn't know what the pattern is of. She just follows the patterns and see what she ends up with. And half of the time it works out, half of the time it doesn't. But it's interesting because patterns have changed, and a lot of things that we assume about patterns are not in the vintage or antique patterns, so results may vary. Anyway, she also has a 4-video series where she crochets an evening gown, which I watched, and I was like, oh, pretty dress. But also there were a lot of places where I was like, yeah, not how I would do it. And I'm not saying that she's doing it wrong. She is following the pattern to make that dress and to explore how that pattern works. I don't like following patterns. I always adjust. I always change stuff. So there were a lot of parts where I was like, oh, I really like that dress. I should make that dress. But I should make it how I want to make it. So that's what we're doing. Using that model as an inspiration, I've made a few sketches, or one sketch in particular, of sort of a fishtail design with a low back that's going to be a little bit scoopy, and then like a ribbon around the waist. So that's what we're gonna make, I think. I hope. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But it's inspired by the model that she makes, and I've adjusted it a bit. Now, her pattern is worked in Solomon knots, which is a stitch where you pull out a long loop and you work at the end of that loop, and then you do like a netted pattern. I don't like Solomon knots. There's too many loose threads. I just don't like working in them. So I considered whether I should do it in Solomon knots and just adjust from there, but there's going to be a bit more of a challenge because I went to the Antique Pattern Library and I found this pattern for a crochet lace, which I thought was really pretty. So I've been experimenting with that and figuring out how to do increases, how to do decreases, and I really like it because it's a simple repeat. So I've learned it, and now I can do it without looking at the pattern. That's important to me because I'm not good at looking at patterns again. But I've been experimenting with increases, and I've mainly been trying to prototype the back because I have a pretty good idea about the skirt. And I figured the front is just going to be plain, basically just a square and then a little sleevey bit. But the back is going to be a scoop, and it's going to take some construction work. So I started out with prototype number 1, which turned out way too scoopy because I increased in the middle and I also increased at either side. I unraveled that, and this is prototype number 2, which is still really scoopy, and I've only increased in either edge. So we're gonna start prototype 3, which we're gonna work in the round. So we're gonna work the front and the back simultaneously, and then cut off for like the arm, and see if we can adjust the scooping of the back that way. So that's going to be prototype 3, which I am starting today. And I have, again, along with being someone who doesn't like looking at patterns and always adjust things, I've never really made prototypes. And you know, in knitting and crocheting, where they're like, oh, this is, make a gauge swatch, this is going to be your gauge. Never done them. I very much seat of my pants, improvise, never know what I'm going to do. So the fact that I am making my 3rd prototype, I need to finish this project, or otherwise I've wasted 3 fucking... Sorry, not gonna curse. 3 prototypes. Yeah, so that's the stitch we're doing it in. That's how far along the model is coming. Now this yarn that I'm working the prototypes in is, I picked it up secondhand. It's some sort of like synthetic. I'm not sure. I'm gonna say acrylic because I think that's what it is, but I don't know. It looks really pretty. I really like the color of it, and it gives like a very distinct shape to the lace. But it is really scratchy, so we're not gonna make the final dress in this, but we're using it for the prototype because it doesn't, it's easy to unravel, it doesn't split, and yeah, it's easy to work in. But we have a different yarn that has been ordered, which is the lace weight yarn in a beautiful, beautiful color scheme. But it's from... I have had some issues sourcing the color that I want, because it's a variegated yarn, so it changes colors throughout. And I've ordered it from 2 different places, one in Sweden, one in France. So delivery is gonna be staggered, and I hope, because they're obviously not gonna be from the same color bath, so I hope they're gonna work out together. But that is also one thing that we're gonna find out once we get there. There's a lot of things here that I'm hoping will work out, and I figured I'm gonna make like smaller little spotlights of the pattern we're doing, the stitches we're doing, the yarn, all these things as they come up. But this is just a first little taste and teaser. Yeah, I'll keep updating as I go along, and we'll see if anyone's interested in watching. And wish me luck. Bye bye.